welcome back to Guitar and Music Tech. Today we're talking about string tension, everything about string tension. Since I started to play, I have always struggled with string tension. I want to bend the strings easier, so I need to have less tension on the strings. So I went through different ways to get the string tension down, and the most important one was, of course, the string gauges. The lighter the gauge, the easier and the less tension you get. But that affects the tone of your guitar because there's less string, less mass, the thinner string, and that moves less electricity. So this way your sound is a little bit thinner, let's say. And that's okay as long as your playing is better. What is the point of having a very good sound and you can't play properly because the strings are so tense and difficult to bend? So there's many things that actually affects the string tension. But before we talk about them, let's talk about why would you prefer to have less tension on the strings. That's mean easier bending. If you're playing blues, you want the strings to be easy to bend because basically blues is all kinds of bends. You're bending all the time. If you're playing jazz, you don't really bend strings as much. So this way, maybe thicker strings with higher tension will suit you more. Also, there's one other thing that give you the feeling of the tension of strings is the scale. We talked about this last time. Guitar scale length, not the scales that you play, major, minor, all that. We're talking about the scale, how long is your guitar's neck, the scale length of your guitar. That affects your guitar string tension. And also the design of the guitar. Does it have a flying tremolo? That gives you a feeling of that the strings are less tense because when you bend them, the springs of the flying tremolo will give way and it will be easier for you to bend, but it will take you a longer distance to get to the same pitch. So although it feels less tense, but it takes longer and more to bend to get to the same pitch. So it's a giveaway there. The things that affect your string tension, if you decided that you are looking for strings that are easier to bend. First, we talked about the gauge, the compound. So that means from one brand of strings to another, you can find sometimes a little bit of difference in the string tension. So try to change different types of strings, brands, and see if you can get a little bit. And some of them, they write on the package the overall tension of the string set. So that is good because then you can choose accordingly. But I always find that thicker strings have a fuller tone. So try to go as thick as you can, but still be able to happily bend your strings and play your style. One other thing that you can change the string tension is to lower your pitch tuning. That means instead of playing in the standard tuning, go to E flat instead of E on a guitar. So this way you're releasing the tension a little bit on the strings and it's easier to bend, although you keep your same tonality because you're still using the thicker strings that you wanted. It's just that you're tuning down a half a step or even a whole step. But be careful. Once you get to a certain tension that it's too loose, it's too easy to bend, that will cause a big problem, which is called fret buzz. You're gonna get the guitar starts to buzz because it's too loose. So it's going to move more. The string is going to move more, and that will hit the frets and the fretboard, and you're going to get some string buzz, unfortunately. So there's a balance between how much you need to have string tension and how much you need to have buzzing. So you don't want to have the buzzing. Also, you need to think about how the guitar feels in your hand because some people would like to have a little bit of resistance in the strings. Not because it's easier or not easier to bend, that has nothing to do with it. It's just the feeling of the whole guitar. If the strings are a little bit loose, they don't like it. They don't feel that there's no resistance, and they like the feeling of having a bit of resistance when you're playing your guitar. So keep that in mind, and it's a long way to find the best string gauge and which tuning you're going to use to get to your ultimate place where you can bend, you can play, you're happy, there's no buzz, and everything is perfect for you. Of course, if you play heavy-handed, that you like to hit the strings strong with the pick, lighter strings or less tension on the strings is not a good thing for you, because you'll end up having buzzing. And buzzing actually kills the sustain, because the minute the string starts to touch the fretboard, it's basically breaking. It's like you're putting on the brakes. On string buzz is brakes for sustain. You're stopping the sustain. So you have a nice sound, and then poof, it stops. Also, one other thing with less tension on the strings is if your technique is not that good in terms of how you are pushing the strings. Some of my students, they push the strings upwards instead of to the board, and that detunes the string. So if you have strings that are light, easy to bend, that means you're going to detune more. Another thing we can discuss also is, what if you're a total beginner and you have no idea what I'm talking about? What is a string that you just want a guitar with strings? That's all you need. Well, if you're a beginner, complete beginner, I would suggest for you to use nylon strings. Why? Because nylon strings, they are so much easier to push down. So not just because you want to bend the string that you need less tension on the strings, also just fretting the string, just pushing it down, especially for beginner guitars, they are not of the best quality, and you would find the action, the distance between the string and the fretboard a little bit big. That means you need to push that string down a long way until you get to the fret and to the board. So if the string tension is high, or you're using steel string, like my first guitar when I bought it, it was terrible. I had to stop because my fingers are hurting. So if you're using nylon strings, the chances that you're having easier way to push the strings and play and continue to play and enjoy your guitar. Plus, it sounds warm. I like the nylon strings, and it sounds warm. I also suggest you start with a good nylon string guitar, even if it's a classical one. You just start to learn, right? And then move on to an acoustic, and then move on to an electric. That's the way I think it's the best way to go through it. So because electric guitars, not only talking about strings and all that, there's a lot of techniques that you need to add. They are a little bit more complicated than just trying to play the guitar. So you're having an instrument that has a lot more possibilities, and you don't know anything about it. So electric guitar is like more options that will be more for the future of your playing. You just need to try to play and play notes and play chords. So yes, electric guitar is fine. You can play and learn on that. But my opinion is usually try to play with the nylon strings, either flamenco guitar, a classical guitar, or, by the way, don't even try. It's not a good idea to put nylon strings on an acoustic guitar or the other way around. So beginner, total beginner, I suggest start with nylon strings, less tension, easier on the fingers. Let's ask ourselves the question, why thicker strings mean that you need to have higher tension? Well, it's very simple. The thicker strings, basically, they're heavier. There's more material, there's more mass into it, right? And since it's heavy, the strings is heavy, if you move a heavy thing, it's going to move slower, right? It's not easy to move around as a lighter thing. So for it to move, to get to the frequency is basically the speed of how fast that strings move. Because at the same tension, the heavier string is going to move slower than the lighter string, and thus the pitch will be lower. So to compensate for that, because it's heavy, you need to keep pushing and putting more tension on that string to get to the same pitch. as the lighter string got before the heavier string. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. Heavy moves slower, so you need to put more tension. So that's why heavier strings, they are more tense. They are difficult to play with, to push down, and to bend. That's it. And the same principle goes for the scale length of a guitar. If you have longer scale, that means you have a longer string, and that means you have a bigger weight on that string. So since it's bigger weight, heavier, again, it moves slower because it's heavy. So what do you do to get to the same pitch? You put more tension on it. And that's why longer scales needs to have more tension on the strings to get to the same pitch. And that also explains why you can have two different sets of string with the same gauge, which means the thickness, and have a different tension. Why? Because of the compound of the string itself. So if the compound was having materials inside, the compound is a little bit lighter in weight, then you can have a string that is lighter to bend and easier to bend than a compound that is heavier. So usually I found the steel, when it's all steel, it's a little bit heavier than when you have a little bit more nickel. But they always have, for electric guitars, they always need to keep the magnetism thing going on, because you cannot have a nylon string on an electric guitar. It won't make sound at all. We discussed this in one of the episodes, so you can go back and listen to it. So you need to have a material, a compound of metals that are able to cut those magnetic field, right? Okay. And also, if you ask yourself why bass strings are thicker than the treble strings, remember bass is a lower frequency. So if you want to have lower frequency, you need heavier strings. So that's why they're thicker. So they move a little bit slower to get those bass frequencies. When you have a string set, the tension on each string should be closer to each other. This is why they put thicker strings in the bass and they go lighter and lighter and lighter. Again, it has to do with the weight of the string. That's it. Okay, so I hope I shed a little bit of light on string tension. Try to find your best. For my personal use, I use 0.9. I find 9 is in the middle of the road. It's not too thin. 8 is good, but you need to be super sensitive. I have a guitar with 8 on it and another one with 9, so I switch differently. Some of them are tuned regularly, some of them are tuned down, so they differ. The scale length is also important. And one important thing that we will be talking for next time is the frets. Everything about frets, we're going to discuss it next week. And it will be our last episode for the season 1. 10 episodes. So if you missed some of them, please go back and listen to them. There's a lot of information technically about the guitar and how it makes the sound. It's interesting stuff. Our second season, we will be discussing about different things a little bit. So next week, don't miss it up. We will be talking about the frets and how they affect your playability and your sound. Thank you and see you. Bye-bye.